And we're live. Welcome to Lone Star Legacy, the official podcast of the Lone Star Lurgwaifs Magic team. We're here to talk about GP Vegas, what we thought about it, what was good, what was bad, all sorts of other crap like that. So thanks for joining us. My name's Sam Craven. I actually did not go to Vegas. I'm going to be acting mostly as a moderator. And also, as with tradition, what am I drinking? I am drinking a Pimm's Cup, which is the best drink for summer that is not called a gin and tonic.
It's great. It's the best part of being in England. Yeah.
Arjun, why don't you go ahead? It's your first time on the cast, right?
Yeah. Hey, I'm Arjun. I went to Vegas. I play a little bit of Legacy from Houston, Texas, and I mainly play combo decks, but I sometimes will play Delver decks too. I'm drinking a Fireman's 4.
It's always solid. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just classic and was in my fridge, so.
Yep.
Great success. Yeah.
And I'm Stu. I was on the last cast, as you guys might remember, and I also went to Vegas, so I'll have lots to say about that. And tonight I'm drinking Long Walk Grapefruit IPA by Fourth Tap. They're a local Austin brewery. They actually have two guys who work there who play Legacy at Pat's, so I've gotten to know them a little bit, and they're good guys. We're talking about trying to organize a proxy vintage event at their brewery sometime. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see if we can get that going.
Nice.
So we've just got the two of you who went to Vegas thus far. We've got some other people going to be joining us a little later, but let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start with props and slops. What were some things that were especially good? What were some things that needed a little work?
Sure.
Yeah. So I overall thought that it was pretty well run as an event, and the location was good. One really common issue with Grand Prix is that the bathroom situation is always terrible, or the convention center is in the middle of nowhere, or obviously Vegas is Vegas and very good at catering that kind of thing. But I thought the venue was good. I thought, given the magnitude of what Channel Fireball had to run, overall I think they did a pretty good job with the actual logistical part of the event. Honestly, overall, I had a pretty good time in Vegas. I thought we were staying at the hotel that was right adjacent to the convention center, and I thought that was kind of medium. The rooms were cool, but the casino area was, I thought, kind of not great. And
was that the Westgate?
Yeah, the Westgate. Yeah, it was just kind of weird. I mean, they had 3 blackjack tables. They didn't have any poker. They had a craps table. It was just not really populated, even though it was full of Magic and chess players that were there for.
And you're a couple blocks off the strip there, right?
Yeah, so they do have a monorail that's actually pretty cool. It's for $5 you can go take it to the Bally's or Caesars or whatever, and it's a 5-minute ride.
Did you take that at all?
I did. I did the last day I was there.
Yeah, I'd been meaning to, and I just Ubered instead, but it would have been.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was drinking on Friday, so all the EDC people were kind of. It was the night when they're all going to their thing, and so the surge was just insane. So. It was also pretty fast. I thought it was actually pretty good. I think without that, it would have been much worse.
Yeah, I'd been meaning to, at least just to get the view of it, but it didn't end up happening. Wait, you said you were there through Friday?
Well, I left. I'm sorry. Did I leave Friday? I left Friday at midnight, so it was Saturday early morning. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I feel that 5 days is a long time to be playing Magic.
Yeah.
at a GP level kind of thing.
Especially if you're not winning.
GP Vegas is now as long as Gen Con, which is the biggest gaming convention in North America.
Yeah.
But it's just Magic.
Right.
And drinking and playing table games. And
it's kind of weird because, compared to let's say you go to Pittsburgh, which is obviously a nice city and their convention center is great and everything, but let's say you start scrubbing out in Magic. Well, you're only there for 2 days, so you can either tough it out there, and even if you don't want to, you don't really have that many options to do something else besides go eat or whatever. But in Vegas, you always have the option of running around, go to casino, go do something else that's not Magic related. And so that's a give and take, because a lot of times I'm trying to figure out whether I want to continue playing Magic if I'm starting to scrub out, or if or if it makes sense for me to just go gamble or go see some friends who are doing something else or whatever. So that was kind of definitely at me. Yeah.
Length was definitely a reason that I didn't go, because Legacy starts Thursday, so you're coming in on Wednesday. So you have minimum Thursday, Friday, and Monday that you have to take off. Probably 4 days you have to take off, right?
Yeah, well, unless you want to leave early and not play Modern or do whatever. But yeah, it depends kind of what you want to do.
Yeah, and this is probably something we'll get into a bit more when we talk about how we actually performed at the GP. But in my case, in both the GP and the side events, I spent pretty much the whole weekend losing. And by Friday, I was like pretty drained of Magic as a result. So yeah, I think doing a full 5 days, unless you're winning the whole time, is going to be kind of a lot of Magic.
So Stu, it sounds like your slops is you?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I have no excuses. I picked a good deck for the meta game, and I got good matchups, and I still just got stomped the whole time. So,
cool. Any props you want to throw out before we kind of get down and dirty into some more detail-oriented stuff? Yeah,
I had a great time in the regards of us meeting people and meeting up with people I already know. I played a lot of people in the GP who weren't regular Legacy players, but they were still all good guys, and they weren't too grinder-ish or anything like that. Everyone was ranged between cordial and friendly, and that it made the whole experience a lot more pleasant, like I said, considering I was getting beat by all of them regularly. It was just I think Eternal Weekend is probably the most I've felt like I've clicked with people at a big event, but this was still a good scene in that regard. So I enjoyed that. Everyone was having a good time and was, they were all good opponents. So,
well, I feel I've never had that issue at a Legacy event where somebody's a complete dick about, whatever. I think in general people are just, it's a more mature format, right? So.
I think Eternal formats in general benefit from the fact that it's essentially impossible to go infinite or live the dream or anything like that with Eternal formats. That's especially true for something like Legacy GP Vegas, because you're taking 2 full days off work to pay, what was it, $60?
What, the entry? Yeah, 90.
90. So there's a major commitment there, and people who are just there to win, who are a lot of times the people who tend to be less fun to interact with, a lot of those people aren't going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the entire weekend I only had one opponent get not pissy, but he's just I don't think he realized how far behind he was when he got killed. No, because I think he thought he was far ahead, and then I had to draw land or something, and I just killed him. He's blah, blah, blah. But even then, overall everyone's really good, and he was really cool afterwards too. I think it was just in that game state. Whatever.
Yeah, but, I think we can all be that person occasionally.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It is. It's a bit emotionally taxing sometimes. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Starting with you, Stu. What did you play? How did you do? We kind of know that one, but what did you play? How did you do?
Yeah, in the main event, I played Burn. For the past few months, as I've probably mentioned on this cast before, I've been playing Maverick a lot lately, which has been really fun. But it's a deck that I've been consistently doing 2-2 on, and it kind of just in the weeks leading up to the event, I was feeling as though I enjoyed Maverick, but didn't know how to play it optimally, and that wouldn't go well for me over the course of 9 to 15 rounds. So in the weeks leading up to it, I considered switching on to Mud, which is my favorite deck and the one I have the most experience with. But then I couldn't settle on a list I liked. And then about a week before, I was like, you know what? Burn seems really well positioned, and it seems like a fine deck to play for a long amount of time. You're not going to get too much decision fatigue, etc. So about a week before, I just said, I'm going to bring Burn. I'm not going to bring any other Legacy decks so that I don't audible to something last minute. And it went really poorly for me. Up until round 7, which was the last round I played before I dropped, I didn't play against any combo decks. So that's already, one dream scenario for Burn is you're only playing against fair decks. And I played against some classically great matchups for the deck, like Bug Delver. And still, nothing worked out. I think I started off the day getting kind of emotionally tilted because I was playing against Infect, and he dropped a chill on me, which is like just like nightmare
So
for a burn. Yeah, that felt pretty bad. So when I lost that in round 1, I was already like kind of on tilt because I felt like it was a matchup I was in control of. I wound up going 3-4 over the course of the day. I lost to Infect, Dragon Stompy, Bug Delver, and Sneak and Show. And I beat a Mardu D&T deck. What was it? Deathblade, like Bant Deathblade, and the Burn Mirror. Although that Burn was playing red-white, and he also was playing Flame Rift, which I think is kind of bad in the mirror. So,
what is the white for? Like Boros Charm or something?
Yeah, he had Boros
Lightning
Charm, and I think
Helix.
he had like Path to Exile in the board.
So he brought his modern burn deck to Legacy Mat.
Yeah, he was not a legacy player. He was
Okay.
he was a nice guy, but he was playing a modern deck. So
Do you have plateaus at least?
no plateaus, I don't think. Yeah, all I saw was basics.
So that's a non-bow with Price of Progress, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, what am I thinking? Sorry.
The mirror would have been that much more savage. So yeah, I lost to Sneak and Show in round 7, which put me at 3-4, and then I was just not feeling it anymore, and I was out of day 2 contention, so I dropped at that point, which is never something I like to do. It's like a pointless personal principle, but I always in general like to play out the whole event and see where I finish out, but I was not feeling it anymore.
It's fair.
That depends on external factors too. Like I dropped Louisville, still live for day 2 because it's like I'm live for day 2, I'm probably not going to make it, and I'd really rather go play bench.
Well, that was a positive contributing factor. I dropped about a half hour before 6:30 Old School was starting. So I wanted to play that, and I was like, I'm not live for day 2. This could be fun. I never get to play Old School, so I dropped to go play that. So I also got stomped in Old School, but at least I had a good time with it.
Well, that's fun. I mean, yeah, I've always kind of at GPs. I've always kind of just played out as much as I can. I mean, for lesser reason for the points because they're just so good at GPs. So
That's
if you
true.
just go to a lot of buys, getting the buys and stuff, you're all
Grinder scum.
I know, right? Ugh. Well, I didn't realize. So I just played enough GPs that I happened to have, close to a buy, and I didn't realize until later. But
Yeah, Ben's like 50 points short of a bye because he plays at all the big events.
Yeah, and he had already won buys from the GPT you guys did. So yeah, he was a bit over the top.
To that point, I went 6-3, 7-3 at Eternal Weekend and got fewer points than when I went 3-3 at GP Louisville.
Yeah, that was weird. I don't understand how they award that.
Well, the GPs are awarded an 8x multiplier, and I think every other major event that's not a GP is like 4x. It's like SCGs or Eternal Weekend, so it's like 4x, which is still good, but it's not like
Yeah, if you're actually doing the grinding thing, it's not as worth it.
So Arjun, what did you play and how did you do?
So I ended up playing Ant. I always like playing Storm decks. I usually play Test, but I decided to play Ant for this go because the mana base is just a lot better, and I thought it's an easier deck to play, so there's less brain drain, especially 9 rounds into it. I think Test would have been a better choice for a Storm deck, but I don't think playing Storm was really the right decision at that time. But anyway, so I went 5-4. I just had a lot of really poor matchups. I think I feel okay with how I played, but I played Reanimator 4 times and Eldrazi once, which both are pretty hard matchups for the Storm deck because they can just lock you out.
That's the worst, just because like you played 2 matches 4 times each. You didn't play 7 matches.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it was fine. My opponents were all cool. I played against that. I played against one Grixis Delver and one Bug Delver, which I think is also a pretty hard matchup for him.
Yeah, those aren't great.
Yeah, so I feel okay with how it went, but the matchup gods just weren't there.
What Reanimator were you playing against? Blue black or red black?
2 blue black and 2 red black.
Yeah, blue black is probably the worst one, right?
They're both just really hard. Red black's just faster, and they can just even if they can't kill you, they can just rip apart your hand, and then you're dead.
Yeah.
And blue black, I think blue black's probably a little bit easier because they can have less functional draws, and you can sometimes maybe strip them of their hand and then do something about it. But they're both just hard matchups. But yeah, overall I feel okay about that. I made the huge mistake of apparently I signed up for Modern, which I didn't realize. So
the GP, not a side event.
Yeah, like the GP. So then I
You
moved
just
it.
accidentally spent $90.
Right?
Correct. So then I just moved it to limited, which was on Friday, and that was terrible. I hate limited. I don't know anything about the new set. I had a very not great time, playing that.
Should have just played your legacy deck in the limited tournament.
I know CCFR gets you, right?
I
You
mean,
get one glorious game win.
Yeah. So I went 0-1. Well, I had 2 buys, but I went like 0-1 drop and go to Vegas the rest of the day. That was a good use of $90.
So, if you were going to start over, would you still play Storm at all, or would you switch to something like Delver?
I love playing Storm. I think personally my win rate is the highest playing with Delver. Maybe there's like a show and tell deck at one point when Dig was legal that might have been higher, but but no, I think Storm is in a kind of hard spot right now. I think Tess is still probably fine. It's just nobody plays it. I don't think Ant is really the place to be right now. There's just way too much in terms of Death Shaman is really it's really hard for Ant to be if it's backed up with either more clock pieces or disruption. Whereas with Tess, you can sometimes just get under it relatively easily, and you don't really use the graveyard, so you're not really dependent on that, and you don't get like hated out, incidentally by surgicals and stuff like that. Or you shouldn't be. People usually bring surgicals in, but it's usually wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't play Moto, but I've seen that Storm for the past few months has been like making a big appearance online. Do you think that is a meta difference or something to do with just like, is Storm a cheap deck online?
It's not a cheap deck, but it's cheaper than getting Delver. It's a lot of people that play Storm a lot can just grind a lot of matches with it too because it's really fast to play. Like you can run through a league in maybe an hour or so, maybe an hour and a half. Like if you know what you're doing and you're just kind of used to it. And so there's like a handful of guys that will consistently 5-0, and a lot of, I think for a while, a lot of the ex-Miracles players online moved to playing Storm.
They wanted the polar opposite of what they were playing before.
Right.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I mean, Storm is still fine. It's good, and I think that the fact that it didn't top 64 the event is probably a good thing for it, because I think it is better than that. I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think it's a tier 1 deck at the moment, and certainly is not. I don't know if Tess ever is, but I think that Tess is the better Storm deck to play for sure at the moment.
All right, so switching topics, because we're getting real close to a topic we want to talk about a little later. Let's talk still about this tournament. How did the meta, both what you played, what you saw other people play, what we saw in the top 64, how did that compare to what you prepared for what you were expecting?
So I was expecting a ton of Grixis Delver, which was the case.
Delivered.
Overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought Ant had a pretty good Grixis Delver matchup. It is close and it can be hard, but I think the better player will win that matchup more often on either side. And if both players are very good, I think the Storm deck's favored. I think both players are bad. The Grixis Delver deck's probably favored though. So I was pretty happy with that matchup. I thought Storm was good against the Deathblade decks, which I thought would also be out in force, just because they eat the Grixis Delver decks, and they have a pretty reasonable game plan against most of the field. I just kind of conceded the Reanimator matchup. I just avoid it. Don't worry too much about facing it. Eldrazi, same thing. I don't know. Overall, I feel okay about the deck choice. If I could do it again, I would probably play something else. Maybe Elves, actually. But Tinfins, maybe. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, but no, overall, I feel pretty okay about it. I think the meta was kind of where I expected it to be. The matchups I guess faced, I don't think were really great. So
they didn't reflect the meta very well. Those two different decks you played against.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I took out Burn because I was expecting to see a lot of Delver and a lot of greedy mana bases. And what I was hoping I could do is just dodge Reanimator all day, which I did do that. And I guess I faced some moderately greedy mana bases. As I said earlier, I think I got good matchups for Burn. Like, it was a lot of fair decks. Just didn't come together. If you take Bug Delver as an example, that's a matchup that I should win a large percentage of the time, but I went 0-2 because both games he immediately made a 4-5 Goyf that I could never beat. So
strong.
I think, yeah, it's a play. It's a risk of playing Burn. I think something I didn't factor into is that a lot of players are going to be like aware of the fact that burn is a deck at big events. So if you take that infect player as an example who chilled me in round 1, I would usually never really expect infect to have chill in the board personally, but that guy probably knew he was going to a big event. There's going to be a lot of people on burn.
When burn is real strong against infect, right? Just bolt them all those little guys before they get pumped, right?
I can't speak to that because we don't have any infect locally, really. So it's a matchup I don't have much experience with. But that's my feeling. Like,
I mean, I put it when I was playing Sean, who's another guy at our shop, who's a pretty good infect player. I always felt that burn was a little bit behind because he has to have bolts and stuff. But they have ways to interact with that, right? They can either daze or counter it if they need to, or they can just use their pumps on it and. Pendelhaven is just going to win the day against all your
Pendelhaven was pretty brutal. In game 3, I had a turn 1 Lavamancer, but he just made a Pendelhaven that I could never get around. So
I mean, it's definitely winnable, and if they don't draw their creatures, you can definitely win. But I don't think it's super easy. And if you spend 3 cards killing their creatures, you have to come up with 9 more points of damage before they find some other way to kill you, which may or may not happen, but. I think it's probably unfavorable, but not terrible. Maybe 40-60 or something. But again, to be fair, that infect pilot that I've played against also very good. So the average infect pilot may not be as good as him. So
yeah, he was there, and I was talking with him about it afterwards, and he felt like a lot of people have the perception that burn is favored against infect. He didn't agree, but again, I don't know if that's just because he's particularly good. That was kind of where I was at with it. I think. I wouldn't play burn if I could do it over again, but that's not because I felt like it was bad in the meta. It was just I know that it went 3-4 for me, so I can't defend it as a choice when I did so poorly. But I think maybe in the hands of a better pilot, burn would have been a better deck. I haven't been playing the deck very much lately, and while the learning curve is not very steep on it, it was still I'm not a burn master. So maybe I should have played something else.
Well, not Belcher, because Belcher also requires that you be able to count to 7.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Tim did not play Belcher, which was disappointing. He also didn't win your bet, right?
No, Tim owes me $10.
The bet was specifically
for those not in the know. While sitting around drinking, our friend Tim told me that Merfolk was so good it would absolutely make top 8 of GP Vegas, and I immediately offered him money on that. And then somehow I let him weasel me down to he would make day 2 with Merfolk, but he got 2-to-1 odds, which is ridiculous because he thought it was going to make top 8 anyway, right? That's a ridiculous bet. Also, less co-check, but we're not worried about that.
Would you get a bonus for top 8ing that event?
No. So the funny part was a week beforehand, he messaged the group chat and was like, "What's the bet specifically?" And I explained what I just said. And he said, "So I have to play Merfolk, or give me $10, one of the two." So he played Merfolk.
Yeah.
Well, the shitty thing was he started off super strong too, wasn't he? 4-0.
Yeah, he was one short of making day 2.
Yeah, and then he finished out 5-4. Yeah, that was brutal because I saw him for the first 4 rounds of it, and I was all amped for him, and then I didn't see him again. And at the end of the day, I found out he didn't make it.
He's pretty good at Merfolk. He's got some sweet tech in his deck, and I know what you're thinking. People who watched the stream, you're thinking it's Smuggler's Copter. It's not. It's fucking Psionic Blast.
Woo! It's good, man. That is
Alpha Uncommon.
I think at one point that was the most expensive card out of Time Spiral, maybe.
He was also playing a one of Gemstone Cavern, which maybe
wasn't a fair number of people were playing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Gemstone Cavern and Smuggler's Copter, which is great because I have a stack of Smuggler's Copters that need to be sold.
Great. It's $1 right now.
It's actually gone back up, but let's move on. So this is the last large legacy event. I say large legacy event. That's anything big enough to have a stream people care about, over a couple hundred, for whatever you take that to mean. This is the last one before Eternal Weekend in October. So using the information from GP Vegas, what do you expect to see at Eternal Weekend? How do you expect things to change between now and Eternal Weekend, and what do you plan, at least right now, to play at Eternal Weekend?
Okay, I'll go first. I think that we'll see a lot of. I think Grixis Delver will still be the most common deck. The deck is just really good, and it can just win against most matchups. Extremely efficient. So I think it's probably the most represented deck in the format. I think Bant Deathblade will become a much bigger deck. Right now, the issues with it, I think, are its mana base, but it is very good against Grixis Delver, and its sideboard is phenomenal.
So before you move on, I have a quick question. Deathblade has been a deck before. It's always been Esper Deathblade, not Bant Deathblade.
Right.
What is the big difference here that warrants changing what we're calling it?
So, I mean, the Bant Deathblade deck has typically now has been playing a lot more green cards, because I think before Esper Deathblade was mainly just a Deathrite Shaman, and then had a Tropical Island for incidental life gain if you needed it, but didn't really, and maybe Abrupt Decays on the board.
Yeah, maybe one Abrupt Decay.
Yeah. But now I think the Bant Deathblade deck, you can go in a variety of ways with it, but I think the really heavy Bant one plays Noble Hierarchs also, so plays 7 or 8 mana dorks, and then also plays Leovold, along with like maybe 2-ish Abrupt Decays main deck. So it's much more heavy on the green. I mean, the first land you typically fetch in that deck is the Tropical Island. It also is a little bit, I think it tries to be a little bit lower to the ground, so it does play Dazes, tries to operate with, playing 3 mana creatures like True Nemesis and Leovold, more so than I think the Esper Deathblade deck of old, which is more, it could actually just, jam out a Jace and just kind of, be like a pretty heavy control deck too. I think this is a little bit more aggressive. You can definitely play Esper Deathblade. That's totally reasonable too. I do think Noble Hierarch is in a pretty good spot right now with this kind of deck, though. And I do think if we see more Deathrite Shaman decks, I think Swords to Plowshares becomes much more valuable. Obviously when Miracles was around, Swords was a huge card, and Snap Swords was great, but I think right now we're really missing a lot of 1 mana removal for creatures in the format. Like, all we really have is Bolt from Grixis Delver, maybe a couple Fatal Pushes.
Fatal Push.
Yeah, but like not that many decks are playing that many. Like, they're playing maybe 2, and there's just very few swords in the format. So I think that we might go back to seeing more of those kinds of cards in the near term, just because it seems like creature decks were doing so well at this event. Combo really didn't do that well.
How about something like Disfigure?
I love Disfigure. I think Fatal Push is probably better for most purposes. But yeah, I think Disfigure is actually really good and probably underplayed. It kills most everything that you care about, except for it can't kill Leovold, which is the one card I think that that might see play that you actually do care about.
Did Leovold really do much at this tournament?
Hold on, I have stats on that.
Oh boy.
For those who did not see, who do not follow us on Twitter, one, you're all sons of bitches. We do know what the top 63 of the top 64, we know what their decks are called. We don't have lists. I extrapolated from that what the card counts might have looked like. And in top 64, approximately 20 Leovold, which is 8% of the maximum possible. So roughly 10% of the field running Leovold. Or rather, 10% of the field running 4 Leovold, so more realistically, 20% of the field running 2 Leovold.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're playing a bug deck that has any sort of like mid-range game plan, Leovold is so disruptive. I mean, 1 to 3/3 body is very real. There are not very many creatures in Legacy that are going to fight a 3/3. And then the draw card ability is just phenomenal against all these Brainstorm Ponder decks that exist, and really, are kind of at the heart of the Legacy metagame, for better or for worse. Yeah, so I think Leovold's pretty good right now, and I think that it depends on the matchup, but there are a lot of times where he might just be better than True Name anyway, in terms of how he disrupts the game plan. He's also quite good against combo decks.
Yeah, no joke. I've been crying every time he lands against Tin Fins because my deck doesn't do anything. Continuing on, we were discussing what we expect to see at Eternal Weekend. So Grixis Delver, and we said Bant Deathblade. What else? What other big changes?
An interesting thing, maybe you guys will disagree with me on this, is that if you look at a GP, you're going to have a large percentage of people who are playing who are showing up maybe without playing that much Legacy regularly, and they're usually just like, you know what, I want the best deck, or I want like what's close to the best deck but most consistent. So they're going to be like, oh, Grixis Delver, that seems like a good way to go. Eternal Weekend to me seems like you're going to get a higher percentage of people who are just like Eternal enthusiasts. So like
format specialists.
Yeah, they'll either be playing a pet deck or they'll have some like alternative perspective on what the best deck is.
As a quick aside, the pet deck thing is a real thing to be prepared about at a tournament like Eternal Weekend. I saw Cephalid Breakfast. I saw Rebels. They're like, it is not unlikely that you will be eliminated from contention by decks you have never seen before at a tournament like Eternal Weekend. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not packing hate for Linsivvy.
Oh, no, yeah. No, there's I agree 100%. That was my sense playing at it last year. And I mean, I was contributing to that by playing Mud. Like, I was on a pet deck, and that was during sort of like Eldrazi's heyday. So I think there's going to be a lot of other people doing
a month after the Eldrazi were printed or so.
Like something like that, right? I know also that was also right when all the new D&T stuff came out, because that was also super popular. But I remember in Vintage last year, yeah, it was like everyone was doing
in fact,
Eldrazi.
It was like a week after Conspiracy 2 came out.
Yeah, yeah. So I only bring that up to say that it's like it's interesting to make predictions about Eternal Weekend, because I don't know. I think everyone will probably be looking at data from this event, but I think you're going to have a group of people with a very different mindset approaching it. So It's hard to say.
I mean, I know our group can personally vouch. We know 3 or 4 individuals who will show up with Tin Fins or Belcher, and that's the only deck they're showing up to this tournament with. It doesn't matter if the card Belcher is banned. They're showing up with that deck, and that's what they're playing.
That's fair. I mean, I've never played an Eternal Weekend before, so I don't really have that much of an idea. But yeah, I guess pet decks are pretty real. I think Elves is actually pretty good right now too, but that deck's also, I think, quite difficult to play at like 90%. So
yeah, maybe Sam can answer this. But how did Elves end up doing at the GP? I didn't play against it at all. So
in top 64, we don't have data for the whole thing. And this is based on the data other people have collected, so I cannot say how accurate this is. But 5 of the top 63 decks were Elves, which would tie it with would make it tied for the second most played deck tied. So Grixis Delver first, and then a 3-way tie between Sneak and Show, Deathblade, Bant versus Esper not specified, and Elves.
Yeah, because I agree. I think Elves does seem really strong, but that's another deck that I never play against locally, and I didn't play against it at the GP, so I'm a little out of the loop on it.
I mean, in a field full of Delvers and Stoneforge Mystics, Elves seems like not a bad choice to be on.
Yeah, and D&T is like consistently a presence at these paper events, and my impression is you just kind of run right over them.
Death
and Taxes has more Grand Prix wins than Miracles.
Yeah.
It's true. But, yeah, I think D&T really got hurt by the top end a lot. And I realized it did win this GP, but I really saw very little D&T at that event, just walking around the tables and stuff. It just didn't seem to be nearly as popular as it was, Louisville. We've just done a lot in terms of printing a lot of good cards for that deck that, are relatively cheap. And so it's like not a terrible intro deck if you're willing to drop,
And there's a few changes also to the deck that have made it slightly cheaper. Some people are playing Ghost Quarter over Rashidon Port. I don't think that's correct in Death and Taxes. Maybe lands.
Yeah.
Caracas has been reprinted. And so like that deck is Wasteland is in Vials is a large percentage of your expenditure.
And Wasteland's not like a $30 card. It's not even it's not touching triple digits like it used to. I mean, yeah, I've been seeing Death and Taxes with Ghost Quarters instead of Ports, and I think that was mainly concession for lands online, where Ports are one of the most expensive cards out there.
The most, more than Black Lotus.
Yeah, and I think Explorations. On the other side, I think Explorations also quite expensive, but whatever. Yeah, so lands is just almost non-existent in online, which is also one thing consider. That's also one reason why Delver, I think, seems to outperform online.
Mm-hmm.
Is because there are decks like lands are just not really, there just aren't that many.
No drop of honey online.
Is there? I have no
That
idea.
card is online. I don't know how much it costs, but it is online. There's only a handful of cards now that are both relevant and not online.
Mm.
Palace Jailer among them. Cards that require you to become the Monarch.
Yeah, Arjun, you brought up the idea of D&T being like a good intro deck, basically, which is funny because it's cheap, but it's like not easy to play. I feel like you need a lot of format knowledge. And
I think playing that deck at 100% is very hard, and that's why there's only a handful of people that are consistently really good with it. But it's also interesting to see that those guys are always consistently good with it. You know,
I feel like though more so than a lot of blue decks, you could play Death and Taxes at what is actually a relatively low level, and at least feel like you're accomplishing something because you're putting dudes out, you're turning dudes sideways.
Yeah.
Whereas, for example, a local guy built his first blue deck and was going brainstorm, land brainstorm go, land brainstorm go, land brainstorm go, and at the end of the tournament told me brainstorm suck. I'm like, well, you don't know how to use it, but like worst case scenario in Death and Taxes, you're putting dudes on the board and turning them sideways.
Yeah, and you have some sort of like a little bit of a tempo plan with your swords or flicker whiffs or whatever. But yeah, so I think it's, you know, you're just playing dudes. You don't have some sort of weird win condition that's like make a merit wage or like, you know, play a bunch of cards and play tendrils or something. Like the win condition is like very clear and obvious. You know, you're playing creatures sideways, and then you know you're just doing normal Magic things. Like you're playing lands, you're playing vials, creatures, whatever. So in that regard, I think it is. And I think it's actually not that expensive to build compared to other legacy decks. Yeah, I mean, vials are expensive, ports are expensive.
Cavern,
but, you know,
would be the other big one, right?
Yeah, that's another big one.
Maybe, but you play maybe one of them, you don't really need it.
Yeah, I think the winning deck only played one.
Yeah, and I think without miracles, like it doesn't really matter that much, honestly.
So,
but
getting off this tangent though, what do you plan on playing at Eternal Weekend? At least thus far, we're still pretty far out. We've got a lot of time to audible, a lot of time to acquire cards. But what are you thinking you would play?
So I'm on the fence. Storm is one of the Storm decks is always going to be competing for, you know, something I could be playing. So I think it's either going to be Tess or Blue Red Delver, personally. I think both those decks are pretty good against the field, pretty proactive, and I actually enjoy playing both of them quite a bit. So good enough for me.
Yeah, I'm not going to make a strategic decision on that, but one of the big takeaways I had from this GP is that if I'm going to be playing for anything over 6 rounds, basically I want to be playing a deck that I just have a lot of fun playing. I made the mistake this weekend of not just that I brought Burn, but the only other 2 decks I brought with me were Old School Goblins, and for Modern I brought Skred Red. So the entire weekend was just mono red. And by the end of all that, I was super burnt out on it. So what I want to do for Eternal Weekend is bring decks I enjoy and bring a large variety of strategies so that if I find I'm not enjoying one thing, I can inside of it switch to something else. So I anticipate I'll probably end up playing Maverick. You know, I have a long time to learn more about the deck and get better about it. And the main thing I'm learning about Maverick as I go with it is that the deck has a lot of play to it and can handle almost anything in the field if you know what you're doing. So I think that might not be a terrible choice, especially if people are showing up and playing a lot of Delver decks. Maverick is pretty solid against those. So that's the plan. I mean, we're 4 months out, so
yeah, lots of time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to speak to what you said about fun real quick. I think Eternal Weekend we've talked about already how great the Eternal community is. I think Eternal Weekend more than any tournament or even gaming convention that I've been to, I absolutely would not mind going OX drop. I was actually a little upset last year at how well I did because there were a lot of people I wanted to hang out with and go party and go hit up Columbus. I was thinking about going to, there was a Ohio State game that day, and then I probably knew 20 people and then met another 20. So Eternal Weekend, do not feel pressured to try to win. It's definitely a weekend for fun and revelry, more so than playing Magic, or even playing Magic, not winning Magic.
Well, a
Lots
nice
of cute-
component of it is that the championships are both single day events unless you make top 8. So you're not like playing 9 rounds and then signed up for another like 6 rounds the following day. So yeah.
Well, that being said, winners book hotel rooms for Sunday night. I booked a hotel room for Sunday night.
I haven't booked my room yet. I have a flight, but I need to figure out the room situation.
So just so you know, the rooms, for everyone, the rooms are already pretty expensive. I spent $9.80 on a double at the DoubleTree a half mile away.
Yeah.
That was the cheapest, not shitty hotel within walking distance.
That's gross.
TC Dex or whatever, not TC Dex.
Card Titan.
Card Titan says that this week the hotel info will be released. So at that time, might audible to another room. But if you don't have a room now, you probably want to do that as soon as possible. More so than a flight.
I would like consider Airbnb. That's what I did last year, and our room was like mediocre, but I think it is usually a decent amount cheaper than a hotel. Personally, hotels like I don't give a shit about what they're offering, but some people might. So
well, we can also have. There's a whole discussion to be had, I think, about this that we'll have before Eternal Weekend. But I think there's something to be said for staying at a hotel where a lot of other people are staying.
That's true.
At Eternal Weekend last year, we were like 3 Long Islands in, which is totally my fault, and I don't regret a minute of it. But and someone goes, "Hey, is that Rich Shea down there?" We're on this like balcony, like 3 floors over the lobby. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Wouldn't it be cool if you came up here and had a drink with us? And I had 3 Long Islands at that point, so I just stood up, leaned over the railing, and go, "Hey, Rich Shea, come have a drink with us." And he did. He came up, he sat with us for 30-40 minutes, and yeah, it was cool.
Nice.
Your head wasn't shaved at that point, so he was probably a little less freaked out by you.
Well, my beard was more wizardly at that. And I'll go ahead and throw in what I would play. I think I would probably play Esper Deathblade. I think I'll probably end up playing Tin Fins because it's a ton of fun, but I think it's really poorly matched up against what everyone else is playing. And Esper Deathblade is a deck that, if you bring enough skill to it, which is not necessarily skill that I have, you will be rewarded for that, if in no other way than having a good time doing some a lot of calculations.
Yeah, I think Deathblade is probably a solid option in general. I don't own the parts for it, but if you're going to go for that like generalist approach, that's probably a good way to go. So
I also have all the duels altered and all the fetches signed, so that's another reason to play that deck.
I'm impressed.
So last big Magic question before we get into some of the more ridiculous stuff. What is the coolest matchup or play that you either saw or experienced in a game? And this can apply outside of the Legacy Grand Prix.
Outside of Legacy. I'm taking a look through my notes here. I don't know about like specific play or matchup, but when I was playing the old school side event, I was watching. I don't know if either of you really like know anything about old school. I've only played it a couple times, so my knowledge of it is really limited. But I was watching a mirror match between these two black-white artifact control decks, where both of them were playing like, what's a Legends card? It's like a 2-mana artifact, and you can tap it to tap down another artifact. I'm blanking on what it's called.
Don't know.
Yeah, it's sweet. But
worse Icy Manipulator.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so it was a mirror between these two decks, and all they were doing is like making lands and Moxen, and then using that card and Icy Manipulators and Ivory Towers and Mishra's Factories, and just perpetually tapping each other down the entire time until one of them would draw like an Armageddon or a Balance and then reset the board. And I think, as far as I could tell, their only win cons were Mishra's Factories and Trikes. It was
This sounds wonderful.
It was
Yeah, this is
simultaneously
great.
the most boring thing and the most wonderful thing to ever watch. And yeah, it got me like pretty amped about old school.
Nice. So I don't know if I had any super interesting matches. I had a little bit of
mean,
sequencing.
We
stuff.
can include just like you got a sweet flop. That's fine.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, I have another one actually.
Yeah, let's do that one.
This is in the burn mirror. I was playing in round 6, so it feels weird for that to be like a highlight. But in game 1, we were at this point where I was at 4 life and he was at 1 life, and he called a judge because he had a Flame Rift in hand. And for those of you who don't know what Flame Rift is, it's a colorless and a red. I think it's a sorcery, and
Yeah,
it does.
sorcery.
It's a sorcery. Yeah, it does 4 damage to each player.
Yep.
So
he
it's a
was
draw. He has a draw in hand.
Yeah, so he was wondering what happens if he draws. He wanted to know if the match can theoretically end in draw, or if we have to just like keep playing until someone gets 2 wins.
2 wins. Yeah.
Which that's what it turned out. But anyway, this was like a 10-minute judge call to try to figure that out. And
That's
then he
awful
decided
because I could tell you the answer.
Oh
in
no,
60
it's so
seconds.
easy. But yeah, it was a long judge call. So he decided to Flame Rift me, and then I just had a Fire Blast in hand and killed him in response.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
I
pretty
feel like there should be a judge. Whatever his question is, in response, I kill him. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I should have spared it. Like, as soon as he called the judge, I should have just been like, "Oh, you're trying to Flame Rift? I have a Fire Blast." But
I feel
let
like
him
you can
go
even just
through
be
with
like, "Judge, I have some input. You don't have to make this ruling because I have this
What
card.
if you-
Cool with that."
What if he was like sandbagging a bull, so waiting for you to Fire Blast? So he could
it.
bullet you?
I was worried. Like, this could have been some very next level stuff.
Yeah.
He was like a modern grinder, I think. So, like, he probably knows that shit better than I do.
Yeah. I don't know. Fire Blast is pretty good. Probably
Yeah, I
needs a
love that
reprint.
card. I love that card.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think I had anything super interesting happen. I played a trial on Wednesday, and for those of you who don't know, are single elimination. So I went 2-1. I lost in my 3rd round, but all 3 rounds I played against D&T. So that was really weird. I was like expecting the field to be heavily D&T after that, and I only played D&T once on the actual day. But
I'll tell you one thing I love about the single elimination trials is I used to be that idiot who brought his entire fucking collection of tournaments. Be like, get knocked out, be like, time to rebuild my deck. And you'd like sit down against someone who just got eliminated and they know exactly what you're playing, and they're like, oh, cool. And they like keep a 6 based on what they think you're playing, and you're just like, do something different. Fuck.
You know,
Yeah.
we started off this cast by talking about props and slops, and I don't mean to get negative, but my one actual real complaint about this whole event was that, especially on Wednesday, but I think this was also true on other days, there weren't that many good constructed options available to you. Like on Wednesday, all you could do was single elimination events, and other than that, they just had like drafts.
I think I understand that on Wednesday because it's most of the people there Wednesday are there for buys.
Yeah.
But as I frequently do, as soon as the side event schedule came out, I threw together a spreadsheet of where everything was, and I just constantly disappointed with the way that TOs arrange eternal tournaments with side events. Frequently, Legacy and Vintage overlap, which it seems to me, if anything has an overlap with Vintage, it's Legacy, so don't make those overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really unlikely Vintage and like Standard are overlapping at any, with the player pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can have have Legacy and Vintage don't overlap, have Standard and Modern don't overlap because those are like major GP formats, but don't have like, oh, you can't make this Legacy, it's cool, you can play Standard where your deck costs less than a dual land and you have no fun. And sorry, I'm going to stop shitting on Standard because I actually don't know anything about it.
You can keep shitting on it, but I mean, I understand that planning a GP must be a huge logistical challenge, and I don't mean to be just like another Magic player who bitches about all the minutia of this stuff, but
I'll give another slop along those lines, and this is another thing I've frequently complained about TOs doing, is that it seems like many TOs do not look at calendars when scheduling their events. So having GP Vegas on Father's Day and EDC weekend, and I can name countless other examples, not the least of which is Star City holding their Legacy Open the week after Eternal Weekend.
And Eternal Weekend last year was like on Halloween and an OSU game, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's as big a deal because a lot of the people going to the OSU game live there.
I actually think the Vegas GPs are supposed they try to schedule them with the EDC weekend in mind. So I think so? They
trying to get Killer to come.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what they did. I never went to a previous Legacy GP, but I think they were also both on EDC weekend as well. And I think it must be an intentional thing, just because I think they can get more people to show up for at least some of the GPs.
Well, I suspect that it's at least intentional in that when the city's full of other stuff, the convention center's cheaper.
That's probably true as well.
And,
yeah, I hadn't really thought about that.
But that's a rant I've been on many times, and I can go on again when we have a cast complaining about TOs. Let's not do that. Arjun, do you have a cool play you saw before we move on to the...
A cool play? This wasn't that cool, but I had a situation come up where I'm playing against Reanimator with Storm. I know his hand is Entomb and something that he drew for his turn. So I know he doesn't have force or anything. So I storm off, I play Ad Nauseam, I go down to 4 life. My hand is just a bunch of rituals, so I have enough storm and enough black mana, and a couple Cabal Therapies and a brainstorm and a probe. So I get stopped because I have an Infernal Tutor kill right here. And I go to play Lotus Petalist in my hand, and he Surgical Extracts my Infernal Tutor in the yard. So then I don't have a tutor, and I'm at 4 life. So then I have to try and figure out how to actually find this Tendrils of Agony to kill him. And so normally with a probe and brainstorm in hand, what you do is you probe first, and then you brainstorm to see 4 cards deep. But in this situation, it's kind of different because the only out I really have besides drawing the Tendrils itself is use a Grim Tutor, which is going to cost me 3 life on casting it. So then what I have to do is I have to brainstorm first. And if I don't hit the Grim Tutor then I have to crack a fetch land and then pay the probe with life and go down to 1 life and guess the Grim Tutor's no longer now. And so working that out, it's kind of dumb, I think now when I think about it. But working that out at the table was actually I actually kind of enjoyed that, even regardless of what the actual outcome of that search was. Kind of maximize the number of looks you have to try and win that game from that spot. But that's not very interesting, but yeah. It's just one of those things that doesn't come up that often. It's kind of not the normal play with those 2 cards.
If we have any Storm listeners, they're probably sitting here being like, no way.
This guy's still playing Grim Tutor?
Yeah, what a nerd. God, Grim Tutor, garbage.
So a point I brought up earlier as to why I played Burn this weekend was decision fatigue. And when you're thinking about what you would play in your next big event, I feel like a big thing in favor of playing Blue-Red Delver is that you aren't having to make decisions quite on that level while you're at the table.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I think Blue-Red the game plan is more straightforward. There's still some stuff where you have to decide when to cantrip and things like that. But
yeah.
But the decisions you make are spread out over multiple turns. Whereas with Storm, you're often planning turns in advance, trying to build up to 1 turn, and then hoping you didn't mess it up, thinking about what you're actually going to do on the real turn.
You kind of have the rules or judge problem too, that a lot of times it's going to be, I'm going to sit here for 60 seconds and not do anything, then I'm going to win the game. And you're allowed to take 10, 15 seconds on a decision at a time. You can take a minute over the course of a turn, and you're liable to get hit with a slow play warning trying to figure that kind of shit out.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There are numerous people who have claimed that there are tricks to getting judges to not call slow play on you, and I have experienced that. A judge sat down next to me one time and was like, I looked at my hand, I'm like, I know I have a kill this turn, but I need to work my way through it. And there's all these things people do where pretend to be counting things and point at this and point at that, so it looks like you're really so it's not I'm locked in, it's I'm clearly doing something.
Yeah, I mean the slow play thing, I've never been called for slow play playing the Storm deck, but that definitely can come up. But I think judges in general are pretty lenient on that kind of stuff too, in terms of if you're a slow Miracles player and you're topping every turn and taking 20 seconds to flip 3 lands around or something, that's different. But
That's
If it's
another
an issue
thing with the Eternal thing is, especially now, TOs are increasingly putting experienced Eternal judges on Eternal events, and so like a judge will be like, you need to make a decision, and you're like, come here, and you show them your hand. They're like, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Which
exactly.
Maybe not exactly how it's supposed to go, but like that's how we want it to go. We want it to be, it doesn't take an hour to top, but me with this hand with ad nauseum and a bunch of rituals, that might take a second.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people are pretty understanding of it, especially if you're not being really slow on anything else. Like, I think people are generally pretty understanding. But yeah, you definitely risk getting hit with the slow play warning compared to Blue Red Delver, where you're like, I'm going to probe you, swim with my dudes, pull you, go.
We have a local who has that problem. So let's move on. Anything else you want to talk about Magic before we start getting into Vegas and hanging out and the overall big event?
I think I'm all right. I want to talk a little bit about Deathrite Shaman, but we can save that for another day.
I have many thoughts about Deathrite Shaman.
Okay, so maybe we can do it for another day when there's more people around too.
Yeah.
The only planeswalker that can be mental misstepped. Not like it's
true.
So I have the question, how was Vegas written down? I already kind of asked that, and the next several questions are kind of going to reach into that. So let's go for the first question that Chad asked. What was the best meal you ate in Vegas?
So I don't think I've said this yet, but on Friday morning, my wife flew out, and then a bunch of her friends were coming out as well. So from Friday through Sunday, I was doing not magic shit with her and her friends, and then Patrick Vincent, who's one of the other team members, and his wife were also with us. But on Saturday night, we all went out to this place called Momofuku.
Oh yeah, fuck
yeah! In New York, it's like the biggest thing. He's great.
Yeah, no, that was definitely.
Yeah. So you can tell me and Arjun are food nerds.
I mean, yeah, I wasn't expecting that. So yeah, I can't claim credit for the reservation. One of her friends made it, and it was definitely good. We had, what did we have? For like appetizers, they had some type of meatball that was really good, but they also had like a pork belly bun. I'm like a big pork belly fan. Like, I think when I was
pork belly and bun are two things that go together. Like,
yeah, they're both solid on their own, but when combined,
like Brainstorm and Fetchlands.
Yep. Yeah, so those were good, and then I got like some yellowfin sashimi for dinner that was good, and Jess got this like cold spicy noodle. We basically just split our dishes, but yeah, that was definitely good, which I was happy about because not to be again a downer or anything, but earlier in the week I didn't have any good food yet. Arjun and I and a couple other guys on the team all went out to this steakhouse in the Westgate, and I ended up spending like $100 for my meal, and it was like not anything special. I thought. Maybe Arjun will disagree, so sorry if you do.
I thought the bread they gave was really good.
The bread was awesome, yes.
That's the cheapest thing they gave you, so.
Yep.
Yeah. The food was like, I think, middling, for the cost especially.
That's how I felt about it, and that was like the first meal out I had. So then for the following few days, I was like a little bit scared off of like eating anything real, because I was like, is this all just going to be overpriced and not great? So for the whole time I was just doing the GP, I was eating like Sbarro in the convention center and just being like miserable.
That's a trap that I think a lot of people fall into at conventions.
Yeah.
Of all kinds. And as a kind of counterexample, like I have a list of places in Indianapolis that I like to eat at. And like, I fucking love going to Gen Con because I really enjoy the city of Indianapolis now. And a lot of people are like, oh, the only thing there is the Steak and Shake. I'm like, yeah, if you're a fucking moron, the only thing there is the Steak and Shake.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I do a lot of... I do a lot of like traveling for not magic reasons, and whenever I go to a new city, a huge amount of what we do is like just based around food. So I feel like whenever I go to magic events, I'm never like thinking about that, and I end up getting there without having reservations or having looked into anything, and then I regret it.
Well, let's get together closer to time because I love to eat, and so do a lot of the non-Goif crew I hang out with.
I think all the Goif crew likes to eat. It's just whether or not they eat good food.
That's true. Yeah, like Ben likes to eat. He doesn't like to. He doesn't care about good food.
No. He and I are Mickey D's buddies. But yeah, so the Momofuku panned out really well, but other than that, I didn't have anything amazing, but I think that's my fault, not the city's fault. Like if I had just put in the work and like looked up some places to go in advance, I probably would have been happier with that. So
yeah, that's fair. I mean, overall, I think I ate at 2 restaurants at Westgate, and both were kind of not great.
What was the other one?
The Italian place. That was like
oh yeah, you went to that. Yeah.
It was just I mean, we were also kind of late, but it was just really slow, and the food was But on Friday, Sean, Sky, and I went near Fremont Street, which is a little bit north of the Strip, and we went to this sushi place. It's actually very good. We went there like 3 o'clock, so there's nobody there.
Nice.
That was a good call. But yeah, besides that, the food, I didn't really have any super duper food or anything while I was there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just like a weird thing about Magic players. Like we can be not like good humans when we go to these events because we don't put enough thought into this stuff. So
I don't even just think it's just that. I think there's some other things like, unlike with say, like if there were no side events, you might put more thought into it. But there's constantly the ability to go get some more Magic in.
Yeah,
and so like unlike say Gen Con where there's so many things to do that you're just like I'm going to miss some, and you miss some and go have a great meal. Or unlike say a tournament with no side events where you'd be like I dropped, now I have free time, I can go get a meal. There's very much the draw of let's go play some more Magic.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm a big fan of getting the fuck out of the convention center, especially when a lot of people are totally cool to play Magic on bar tables or whatever. So get out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. I was anytime I left the convention center at night, I was just like immediately happy to be outdoors. So yeah, what was I gonna say? I don't know.
Yeah. After I dropped from the limited event, I actually felt pretty relieved because I had the entire afternoon to go do other things. And I thought I actually had a lot of fun that Friday. I mean, I enjoy playing Magic, don't get me wrong, but having the freedom to kind of, not be forced to continue to play this thing and go do something else, especially in a city like Vegas and with other guys, like Chad and Ashby, who are like very cool and, very fun to hang out with. That was definitely worth a lot, I think.
By the way, that reminds me of another pro tip kind of for these, especially big Magic events, is get a GroupMe or a Slack going and tell everyone to invite whoever they want. And you can say, hey, does anyone want to go get food? And, it's like, it's not just your friends, it's your friends' friends and all that. And, what's the worst case scenario there? Like you go out with some guys you don't know who have a common interest with you.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
the same thing, I use Twitter so much that a Star City commentator commented on how much they saw me tweeting, because I'll just be like, I'm in the mood for wings. Anyone want to get some wings? Hashtag GP Vegas.
Did he get wings?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that was an example.
No. Yeah. On the Sam, you mentioned earlier the idea that there's like just so many side events going on that sometimes that gets in the way of it. That was definitely my experience, and I know other members of the team had that too.
When it's not just that, there are side events. I think there's a FOMO, a fear of missing out with the side events, where you're like, gotta play all the Legacy I can while I'm here. And there's a little bit of freedom with just accepting, no, I'm only playing the main events, or no, I'm playing one event a day, and then I'm gonna go hang out. I went to GP Denver, and I played 2 rounds of Magic in 2 days. It was wonderful.
And I know like Ben brought a large stack of cards he was hoping to get signed by artists here, and he was really struggling to fit all that in. Like,
he had allocated something like 10 hours for it, and I was like,
it's not going to happen.
Well,
yeah.
Besides that, it's going to be, you're going to want to quit because it's going to be awful.
Yeah,
it's going to be
a lot of
standing
that's
in
just
lines,
standing in lines,
and then paying money while you stand there, and then going to another line.
It did pan out though. He got us that. It was Pete Venters, right, who did the Goif.
Yeah, it's on our Twitter. I think it's on the website as well. original artist for Lorgwaith, Pete Venters, has altered our prize playmat with an original Lorgwaith. And he has also reached out and asked that we get him a t-shirt. So on our next run of t-shirts, we will be shipping one to him.
Yeah, we definitely got to do that. Oh, so that's like the big news that I don't think we've discussed. Multiple sightings this weekend of people wearing Lone Star Lurgoyf shirts who were not on the team.
Who are also not even from Texas.
Yeah, they just saw you tweeting that we were ordering shirts and they decided to get them.
That's cool.
So, yeah, I think I was saying we should have a group called the Lil Lurgoyf Fan Club.
You know what I'll do is I'll just take those people because I know who they are, and with Twitter you can add them to groups and just be like, Lone Star Lurgoyf's added you to Little Lurgoyf Fan.
Yeah, please do.
They'll get a little email.
We can. Our next round of shirts can be like onesies for babies.
Oh no! Have you not been following all of the Millennials Are Awful stuff? Onesies are in, apparently.
That's just a romper, isn't it?
Oh, a romper. Excuse me. I don't know what the difference is, and I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
I also don't know what the card Portent does.
Oh God. Rompers. Yeah, I'd never actually made that connection, but they are just onesies. That's bad. Jess wears them occasionally. I'm never gonna look at her the same way. We'll have to talk about this.
More Vegas stuff. Event overall. How does it compare to other Magic events, other conventions that you've been to, and more importantly, would you go again? Would you recommend people go?
I mean, I think for the logistical challenge of putting 3 GPs right next to each other in one hall and kind of satisfying different groups of players, I think they did a pretty good job, honestly. I'd be happy to go again. I don't know if I would spend as much time playing Magic. I'd maybe play just the Legacy event and then do Vegas things the rest of the next 2 or 3 days. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good to do this in the summer. The turnout was good. I had a lot of fun playing the events. But I'm not really a Magic grinder in that I have to go to a bunch of GPs or PTQs or whatever to try and make the Pro Tour or something. So I imagine for them this is great because they can get 3 GPs out with one trip. But realistically, playing 1 GP is fun. Playing 2 is kind of a lot of Magic, honestly. Yeah, but I would recommend it. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good time.
I have mixed feelings about it. I think I prefer just the standard weekend style events where it's just the 1 GP, just because as is, I took 3 days off of work and spent a ton of money over that amount of time. I think I would prefer to just go somewhere for a weekend, play a GP, and go out those same nights and do shit. I think as a result of having been there 5 days, it was for the first few, I didn't really feel any pressure to go drink or do anything fun, and then that was kind of pointless. It was just me playing a lot of Magic and then going to bed at night. And so either I probably wouldn't do a 5-day GP again, or I would try to do it differently.
Yeah.
It's definitely the type of event that having a plan of attack can help, and I've seen that at other multi-day events like that where it's easy to become maybe disenchanted with the whole thing or to have a lot of downtime just because you don't have as much of a plan of attack of maybe going out or side events planned or meetups. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff too at Vegas that you go on the Twitters. I had to pronounce that like an old person for some reason. And there's people renting houses, having house parties. There's people booking out bars and stuff. There's a ton of stuff to do outside of the event. Mm-hmm. Apparently Steve Argyle went and drove a race car and there's a YouTube video on his channel.
I believe it. He seems like the type who would.
Yeah, it seems cool. No, I think Vegas specifically can have these kind of 5-day things. I think if it was in some other place, I probably wouldn't be that interested.
Yeah.
But I mean, just because specifically Vegas.
As a tourist, Vegas has got to be one of the best cities to visit, right? I mean, just in terms of the density of shit to do.
Yeah, and I think for legacy GPs, I think Vegas or the Northeast are really the places to be because that's where you really get the turnout that makes it kind of worthwhile and kind of keeps, I think, the format kind of ticking in still in Wizards' mind. Whereas, you know, if they had it in LA or something, yeah, you get a lot of these West Coast guys, but compared to something like GP New Jersey or something like that, it's completely different.
I mean, can you imagine if you could have one like in the Bronx, so you'd be right next to New York City?
Oh my God, yeah, like I would dream for a GP next to New York.
Will
GP
never
New
happen,
York
just so you know.
City, yeah, it would just be in like Hoboken or something. Like
Well,
they would never do it.
That's a whole nother rant I have. But realistically,
Yeah.
there will never be a GP or even any major Magic tournament in the city.
Yeah, no, there's just no shot.
I mean, I guess if they charge $250 entry,
Yeah, so like there's a Hilton on 54th and 6th Avenue, which sometimes has like regional bridge tournaments, but that's even insane, like what they charge for that.
you are so
entry.
fucking nerdy.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's the game.
So what is entry fee on a regional bridge tournament?
So it depends. Usually, like a session is about 3 hours long, so it's not like Magic where you play around and then have the option to drop or do whatever. But you buy it by session, and then a session's about 3 hours long. So at a regional tournament, you usually play a 2-session event, and then if you qualify, you play another 2-session event. So basically, if you day 2 the event, you go play another one. But each session is, I don't know, like $15-$20 per person.
And
So I
what's
don't
what's
know.
the maximum amount then you could spend, like if you were scrubbing out and rejoining all the time?
So let's say you played 3 sessions a day, which is kind of the max that you can realistically do. You could play a 4th like midnight Swiss, but let's say you spend $50 a day on stuff. So yeah, like $50 a day times, I don't know how many days you're there, like the week, $300 something maybe. But I remember that it was literally twice as expensive at the Hilton, and I was just like very confused. It's like, but not confused, but it's very surprising that they charge so much for the rental space there.
It's funny how everything is so relative, because like on the one hand, like that's so much less than a Magic tournament. On the other hand, like that's the minimum I've ever been allowed to bet on craps.
Oh yeah, right. No, I mean, and Bridge is different because you're not getting paid out in money or anything, right? So basically, they just have a point system, kind of like Planeswalker points, but they never expire. And then depending on the difficulty of the event and how you place, you get a certain number of points for
Like
how you
EVO.
bet. It's not like ELO because you can never lose points,
Interesting.
but it's just kind of like Planeswalker points. Then some events are restricted by the number of points you have. So if you're a new player, you can basically play in events that are only with new players, stuff like that.
And this is Bridge.
Yeah.
This is like great. If we have any retirees who are listeners, they're going to be so into this.
You know, PV is like a very good Bridge player. He's on the Brazilian junior team. Paulo Vitor.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Anyway, but yes, it's not that common of overlap. Although I think the skills actually overlap quite a bit between Magic and it, but I realize it's not that popular of a game.
All right,
People that are under 50. Anyway.
So we're coming towards the end of kind of our time. I'm going to go ahead and ask some questions on Twitter, and these are placed very sarcastically, but I'm going to go ahead and ask them because I'm sure we can have some interesting comments. Elijah, who we all know and hate, asks, should the U.S. impose sanctions on Honda to curb its 12% metagame share on Legacy?
I do
And for
like
those who
kind
do-
of. I love this name. Yeah.
For those who don't know, our group has been referring to Grixis Delver because it's the default as Honda Civic.
So I think that started in Australia. Do you guys listen
Really?
to Salt Mine?
Nah.
I do sometimes, but not that often.
Yeah, that's the first place I heard it. Is they were talking about that. I love it. I think that's such a perfect name.
I'll go ahead and say I'm not educated enough to comment on U.S. trade policy.
And
And
we're
the
doing
Honda Civic
another cast about Deathrite. So
And the Honda Civic is an excellent vehicle. I wish that they stopped raising the price dramatically every time they released a new one. You know, last generation, you could get a new Civic with AC for $12,900.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
Pretty good.
stick shift, cloth seats, like got to reach between your legs if you need to scoot the seat up, no tilt steering wheel. I'm talking bare bones, but you could buy a new car with AC for $12,900.
good to
pretty
know. Good to know.
So our answer to this question is Deathrite is a different cast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think everything else about the deck is just good, efficient one drops, or like one mana cost spells. So
so we need a chalice that costs less than 0. Like Leyline
Yeah,
of the
like-
Chalice at 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Elijah also asks, what is to be done to stem the tide of children flooding Eternal formats?
I know what he's talking about, and I'm not going
Let's
to
pretend that we don't know what he's talking about.
All right. I will say, to reiterate, that everyone I played against this weekend was great. So in person, Magic players are all generally like fine or wonderful, but people on the internet do kind of suck. So
So there was actually a real life case of this. There was a guy who, for his bachelor party, this was like 2 years ago, it was on the Magic Reddit. He got his LGS was going to sanction FNM at a strip club for his bachelor party, which I think is awesome. Turns out it is in the Magic tournament rules that you cannot have any restrictions on age, which it's phrased like a discrimination thing, but a strip club is 21 up and therefore cannot have events. Also, they very not subtly were like, we are not going to let you sanction events if you do that.
I mean, I guess that's reasonable.
That's
Are
fine.
you
I mean,
not supposed to drink at sanctioned events?
So I looked into that again recently. I couldn't find it in the rules. I don't know if it's been removed. I'm pretty sure it used to be there, and I'm pretty sure it's not now.
well,
Yeah.
I remember at a PPTQ at Asgard. So for you guys that don't know, our local game store has a bar in it. You know, a full service bar.
Sorry, not a full bar.
Sorry.
A beer bar.
Right. There's alcohol. Whatever. There's, but even at like PPTQs, the head judge, who travels and does a lot of these, it's fine. He's like, yeah, you guys can drink. Just don't be stupid and don't do anything.
That
As
judge
a
is
result
also
of
a
your
friend
drinking.
before.
Oh, okay. Is he?
If this was actually removed, I suspect that it was a thing where, for one, my argument has always been that that's unenforceable because you're holding these events in hotels where there
Right,
are
where-
rooms.
Yeah.
And so you start getting into this really strange thing where, like, let's define what a place is, right? You can't serve in a
Yeah.
place that serves alcohol. It's like, well, the building has a bar. All of these things. And besides that, there's been this big board game renaissance that is starting to have this explosion of board game bars and cafes. The most famous of which is probably Mox Cafe / Mox Boarding House.
Yeah, in Seattle.
Where all the WotC employees play. And if nothing else, it might be a little hypocritical for them to ban alcohol while having their employees play at FNM where alcohol is served.
I mean, I think if I'm Wizards, I would just set that to kind of the LGS's or whatever, the TO's discretion,
So-
and let them
Yeah.
kind of handle the.
As
Whatever.
best I understand the rules, it's still not okay to be drunk while playing. Like, because there is a difference between drinking and being drunk, right?
Sure.
And that, as best I can tell, is still not allowed.
Really?
Which is reasonable. Realistically, what you do is like, you're causing a problem. Doesn't matter that it's alcohol related. You're causing a problem. You can't be in my tournament.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I understand if you're being disruptive or something, that makes sense. But if you're just like hammered and just playing Magic, but not necessarily being loud or like playing at some weird pace or anything, is that really?
Ben Perry likes to brag that if you watch the stream of the time he top 8'd a Star City, the reason there was such a delay between the Swiss rounds and the top 8 is because they were trying to sober him up.
Oh, really?
This is like, you have to be on camera now. You're in top 8.
Yeah. Oh no. That's really funny.
Last question from John Paul Jansen. Why does Houston smell so bad when Dallas doesn't? This was a question posed when I said, have any questions for our podcast?
I'm a little insulted he's just leaving Austin out of this one, but I've
When
never
y'all have
noticed
two
Houston
airports, you can
smelling
join the
bad.
party.
That's fair.
Yeah, I've never used to notice Houston's smell. I do realize it's extremely humid, and it smells like a humid place, but it never struck me as smelling bad or anything.
Dallas is also just like, it's definitely like an even worse Houston. Like, it's Houston without any of the good stuff, right?
I actually disagree. I think Dallas has more in common with Chicago and New York than it does with Houston. Dallas is much more big city, even though Houston is larger.
Wow. Okay.
I've only been to Dallas
to
a
win.
couple of times.
Downtown Dallas is 4 times the size of downtown Houston.
Is it really?
Yeah, well,
Wow.
Dallas is significantly less spread out. Part of the reason for that is Dallas has this thing called zoning, and zoning places restrictions on where buildings can be. And Houston doesn't have that, and that's why we have essentially 6 business districts.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess my experience of Houston is also pretty much limited to
Sugarland and
Montrose and
Brashburn.
Sugarland. Yeah.
All right, back on stuff people want to hear about. We're at about 90 minutes. Any last thoughts about Vegas? Any last thing you want to say? Any other cool experiences?
Yeah, I got a couple. As far as purchases, some good things. I can't imagine anyone knows this. Another team member, Ben, and I do a throwback sealed, where he and I have been opening old packs of Magic. We started with like the Dark and have been working our way up. We're just starting Urza Block, and we have 100 card decks, and we're just playing sealed. But we each picked up a pack of Revised because that was a set we missed. So we went back and got that, and also got packs of Urza's Legacy. So
now, a quick reminder on Revised and earlier, you could open more than one basic land. How many basic lands did you open?
we haven't opened them yet. That's actually a really good thing if we can, because he and I are playing for ante, and I've been specifically having a problem with anteing all my basics, and I'm like, I have no spare basics now. So if I ante another one, I'm in trouble. So opening one would be great.
So I will say, one of us, I thought it was y'all, I guess it wasn't. Someone in the group posted a group chat that they opened a Revised pack with 6 basics in it at Vegas.
God. It was probably Tim.
I believe you could open an island in the rare slot.
Ugh. Yeah, there's a different island I want to open in that rare slot. But I also picked up a Japanese Tolarian Academy I needed for shops. So that was cool.
Wish I had known that. I have one on my desk.
Oh, God damn it. Other big shout out, I think the breakout deck moving forward is going to be a Relentless Rats deck in Modern.
I thought you were referring to your sealed deck. So.
Yeah, Ben Arjuna and I spent like at least a half hour at dinner talking about Relentless Rats. So we're going to make that happen as soon as there's another Team Modern event. We're all playing Relentless Rats.
So you're going to email me as soon as the cast is over with a deck list for me to post.
It's still too far up in the air.
I was very surprised that Swarmyard is like a $10 Magic card. It made me a little bit sad.
Fortunate if we do a team event, like only one person can have Swarm Yards. So
That's true.
yeah, I think like one
that.
person gets that, one person gets Thrumming Stone, and one person gets Pack Rat.
Like Ether Vial or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually just had a bunch
What
of
are you guys
discards
doing? Wait, so one of you plays Cavern and Pack Rat, right?
it's undecided.
Yeah.
Is there a Rat Lord?
Not that I
is it?
know
Hold on.
of.
Wait,
Coat
we
of
have-
Arms? You play
we
Coat
have-
of
Yeah,
Arms?
Coat of Arms is probably the Rat Lord.
They're shared Triumph, right? Is that modern? Maybe it's not modern.
I don't know. If there was a Rat Lord that gave Swamp Walk and then you played Urborg, like
Like
this deck would
Badmoon or
be-
something.
Yeah.
And then only one of you guys play Relentless Rats, the rest of you can play real decks.
And then that person doesn't play Relentless Rats.
I'm going
either.
to Google creatures, game,
Yeah, I'm looking at
Swamp
this right
Walk.
now.
Yeah,
Rat.
this was our discussion while
Oh, here we go.
at Shitty State Dinner.
Filth, which is not in Modern, is a
That's in the graveyard.
it's a 2/2 for 4.
Oh, is
as
this
long
from
as
like
it's in your
the
graveyard-
Odyssey cycle?
As
Yeah,
long
no,
as it's in your
exactly.
graveyard and you control
Yeah.
swamp, creatures you control gain Swamp Walk.
Was it Wonder, Anger, Brawn, and no one knows what the white card is? Yeah.
I'm amazed that
What
you
is
know
the
what
white?
More Than Wonder is.
Wonder and
Oh,
Anger are the two
Anger
big
sometimes
ones, right?
plays, like, I think Drake sometimes plays Anger or
Anger's
something, or it used to.
Oh,
Alright.
Funeral Charm gives Swamp Walk.
And that's modern legal,
That's
right?
in Time Spiral. If you don't play the Visions one, I'm going to punch you. But
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Funeral Charm, 1 black. One of the modes is target creature gains Swamp Walk until end of turn.
It's not all creatures. I don't
Just,
think we're there yet.
What's the spell that's like copy target spell unlimited times?
Is there one that can do that?
I'm pretty sure.
That seems.
I mean, it's like a 20 mana EDH garbage card.
Oh, is it like Lava Dart? Copy it. 20.
You can play.
Go.
Oh no, that's not modern legal. That's not modern legal.
I don't think there are any Rat Lords. Just on my cursory gatherer check.
You can
That's
play
gotta
Plague
change.
Beetle. It's a 1/1 for 1 with Swamp Walk.
Nice.
Yeah, that seems.
As
Solid.
long as you don't want your opponent to board into Quagmire, which says that creatures with Swamp Walk can be blocked as though they don't have Swamp Walk.
How do we beat Elephant Grass? And we just discounted Elephant Grass completely.
Well, that's not modern legal, so I think the
Okay.
real one,
Okay.
the real one we're worried about is Maelstrom Pulse. Like Deck's just dead to that.
Oh, maybe we should play some invasive surgeries or something.
How about Whispering Shade? Oh no, that's not.
Meddling Mage. Meddling Mage is a real
Meddling
problem for
Mage.
Relentless Rats.
Ooh, you know what card has Swamp Walk? One of the Zodiac cycles, Zodiac Pig, and Zodiac Rat, and
that the
Zodiac
same-
Snake.
Is that the same cycle as Zodiac Dragon?
It's the same cycle as Zodiac Rooster, which is the only chicken planeswalker.
This is very confusing to me. I need
So
to Google this.
the South Park episode about
Oh.
Magic,
Oh,
chicken
yeah.
playing Rooster. So the joke was that it's a chicken planeswalker, and Zodiac Rooster is a chicken that has planeswalk. Therefore, it is a
nice.
chicken planeswalker.
That's
Oh,
good.
man.
Oh, here you go. Zombie Trailblazer. Not legal in Modern, but you can play it in the Legacy event. Costs black. It's a 2/2. Tap an untapped zombie you control. Target land becomes a swamp. Tap an untapped zombie you control. Target creature gains swamp walk until end of turn.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
Torment coming through for us.
So if they reprint a Torment uncommon for you,
We're good
Seems
to go.
likely.
no one is listening to the cast at this point. Everyone is just like, what the fuck, guys?
Yep, that's it for my shout outs. Wait, Arjun, did you gamble at all while you were there?
I just played some blackjack and craps with Chad and Ashby, and JP was there for a little bit too.
How'd you do?
Up small, like $20 or something.
Last time I went and gambled with JP, it was the fucking worst. I was down like $400, and he's just like, "Come sit at the blackjack table with me and just drink." Well, and he gets up like $1,200. I'm like, "Fuck yourself."
Yeah, JP is very swingy.
And he's like, "Do you want me to like spot your 50 and I'll tell you what to do?" I'm like, "No." Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I just start ignoring what he's telling me what to do, and I start getting up, and then I start listening to what he tells me what to do, and I go back to zero.
That's terrible.
And a couple of them were stuff like they're like, "You're definitely hit, or definitely stand. Don't hit on that." I'm like, "Hit 21." They're like, "How do you do that?" I'm like, "Because I'm good at math." I don't understand you, but okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Patrick and I were playing blackjack, and beforehand he bought this little and when you should stay. So the entire time he was just like looking at it,
Yeah.
and the dealer didn't give a shit. So she was like, "What does your card say you should do right now?"
Oh, like
And
I've just straight up asked the dealer, "Can I just have this on the table?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care."
Yeah, I
Like,
think in
there's-
general,
there's-
they don't
there's
care
still odds
about
to
the
win.
cards. Yeah, I don't think they care about the basic strategy cards.
Well, it's
I
still
think
like
that-
in their favor anyway. So yeah, they don't really give a shit.
I mean, if you're a dealer, you just want your people to be winning money, right? So in general, like you
Because
want,
that's how you get tipped.
yeah, and those
If I don't
matter
have
more to
any
you
money,
than
I
like the
can't
house
tip you.
making. That matters more to them than like the house making an extra like $300 off people losing, right? So
Yeah,
for that one duration, So you hope that your guys make money and everyone else let people lose money, I guess. But
yeah.
One more note on gambling, talking about all the food y'all had. When we go to L'Auberge, their buffet is fucking awful.
Wait, where's that?
I would not have expected it to be good. I'm just gonna put that up.
No, it's Lake Charles. It's like $60, and it's like, oh yeah, they have filet. I'm like, cool, let me go grab one. All well done. No option to have it cooked properly. I was like, this is a fucking crime against nature. Like, I know this is USDA choice, which is or select whatever the lowest human grade one is. Come on, like cook it right, man. And then like it was funny because we went and Will was talking it up the whole time. Then we get there and I'm just like shitting on it. He's like, "Well, what'd you expect seeing a buffet?" I'm like, "I expected $60 for the food, and you said it was good."
Yeah.
I feel like I'm also like losing my capacity to take advantage of buffets. Like when I was in high school, I could go to a buffet and eat like 4 plates of food very easily. And we did a breakfast buffet before the GP, and I ate like 1 plate, and I was like, okay, I'm good.
Like the way you take advantage of the buffet is no longer by amount of food, but it's by eating the right stuff. So it's about like
That's
focusing
true.
on crab legs to get your value,
Yeah.
or like if they've got a Bloody Mary bar. That was the one thing my mom said if I went to GP Vegas I had to do was go to the Bellagio and have like a $25 Bloody Mary by the pool.
Did you do it?
Your mom sounds pretty cool.
Ever? Yeah. Sounds great.
No, I didn't, because as you may not be aware, I did not go to GP Las Vegas.
No, but like, have you ever done it? Like going to
I haven't
Vegas?
been to Vegas.
Really? Never?
Yeah,
Oh, man. It's an interesting place.
I have the problem that I like to eat too much, and I would just like go to Vegas and just eat the whole time and not do anything else.
That seems fine.
I'm like, I can
That's
do
a really
that.
reasonable way to spend.
I can do that in cities where there isn't gambling, so I won't also be lighting money on fire.
Yeah, the thing with that is just like we all live in like world-class cities anyway. So, I mean, I'm sure you have like decent food in Houston somewhere, right? Like you
Yeah.
go to Vegas.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty good on the whole. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, well, that's like one of the great things about Vegas. Like I said, it's so dense. I mean, you could go every night and see a world class show. Every night have a world class dinner without moving that far. Which cities outside of like maybe New York, that's not going to be an option.
There's also a
Even in New York,
Sparrow.
Well, you know that is Michael Scott's favorite authentic Italian pizzeria.
like-
That's true.
It's so great.
There was a Sparrow that was all you can eat at my college.
Oh my god. That sounds like a
Also,
disaster.
even better, I went to Oklahoma, which has the world's only all-you-can-eat Chick-fil-A.
Wait, are you serious?
How did they like go stay in business?
So the way it works is the Chick-fil-A is in like the cafeteria, and the cafeteria is just a buffet, right? So you just like swipe your meal card for like $12 or whatever, and just like go up, get some chicken nuggets, eat them, go up, get some chicken nuggets, and just keep doing that.
Wait,
Sounds
where in
amazing.
Oklahoma is this?
Norman at the University of Oklahoma.
Oh. I want to go to the GP Oklahoma City this December, and I would absolutely go out of my way for an all-you-can-eat
You would
Chick-fil-A.
drive 40 miles to go to an all-you-can-eat
I mean,
Chick-fil-A.
come on.
I
It
think
would
you're
probably
blowing
end
your
up being
value
a
on the gas mileage.
It would end up being a Sunday when I got there anyway. So.
I think I have my student ID if you want.
Well, I think we exhausted GP Vegas, so
Yep. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. Thanks for listening, other people.
yeah, maybe at some point we can actually follow through and do a vintage episode that we've been threatening to do.
Well, the problem is all the people who want to talk about vintage are also people who are very busy watching Netflix and drinking beer right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
On a related note, you know what I'm going to do in about 5 minutes?
Drink a beer and watch some. What's a good Netflix show?
Black Mirror.
I'm actually on,
It's pretty
on
good.
Doctor Who again, which is unfortunate, and also on Amazon, not Netflix, but same difference.
Yeah, we just finished Orange is the New Black. We're like halfway through House of Cards, the newest season, and not super into it.
And
It's
is-
been so
and
long,
is
I used to
legit.
remember a lot of it. That's just my
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I watched the last episode from last season to catch up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
quite smart.
There's also a like in case you missed it at the beginning. Anyway,
Yeah.
we're gonna hang up now, or at least stop recording.
Oh, before we do, one last shout out in on the vintage note. This Sunday in Austin at Wonko's Toys and Games, they're hosting Eternal Struggle, which is the Austin Vintage series. So that's this Sunday, I think at like noon. So
Cool. Yeah,
Yep.
make it out there, Central Texas people, and also people with cars.
yep, support the good formats.
All right, thanks for listening.
All right, guys.